superpowers. I'm a student at University High School, and I'm also a young entrepreneur. The beginning process is the most important process, which is planning what you're going to do onto the canvas, and from there it helps you understand what you're going to do. These 9/11 cleats, they're brave. The reason is what I used. The brave stands for those who fought for us and helped us through these tragedy times, and the reason is the reason we are alive today.
Academics are very important to him, and the amazing thing is I never even have to tell him to do homework. It just makes me proud that he knows the priorities in life and he has no problem getting them all done. He went to a leadership and vision program at Yale University where he learned all about business entrepreneurship.
I felt that it was a great opportunity to meet new people and get to know what the meaning is behind business and getting ideas out there and what the process is into getting into that. My number one takeaway was marketing it and getting it out there for those, and really the main way to start is what is really needed in the world. Just seeing my work out there just makes me happy, and just see how good of a job I've done or how I feel I've done wants me to keep going and striving to be the best I can be.
So let's give him a warm welcome and a good round of applause. I'm going to race the Advent Health car this weekend in the class race at Daytona. My nerves are a little high of the questions that you might ask, because I know the questions that my kids ask in this situation.
What type of foods do you eat leading up to the race?
It's super hot inside the car, and the races are really long. So how you fuel your body can make a huge difference in the outcome of your race and how you feel during the race. Hydration is one of the hardest things for us in getting enough water in. I drink water basically 100% of my day.
At that age, you're so young that if you can learn the proper way to eat and the proper way to exercise, and then you live your life that way, it's much easier than if it gets out of control and 10 years down the line then you're trying to get it back. So if you can teach someone at this age the importance of nutrition and exercise, it just makes your life so much easier.
Students are coming up saying, is there a NASCAR driver coming? Is someone coming today? Like, who is it? Who's coming? So even students that aren't into NASCAR are saying things like, I'm not into driving, but I'm so excited! Like, I see that over and over again, and it's really just hysterical because I feel so fortunate and overjoyed to have this opportunity.
My name's Taylor Duguay. I work at the United Way at Volusia-Flagler counties as our impact and marketing strategist. I think the most influential teacher I ever had was Mrs. Linda Cuthbert, who now of course sits on our school board. She really helped me figure out what I wanted to do in life, especially in politics and for our community. She told me one time, if you don't like something, change it. And that really set me on my path to where I am today and why I'm still in Volusia County and why I work in nonprofit.
Oh man, I think I was pretty nerdy. It's usually what runs through my mind when I look back at my high school stuff.
I got a very high quality education through Volusia County schools. I know that the reason I can stand in front of a group of 500 people and speak clearly and get my point across is because of the skills I started developing in 6th grade with my speech class. My path in life that I've developed is because of those relationships I made through Volusia County schools and that connection I built. So Volusia County schools really did prepare me for my job now and for my career, which involves a lot of writing, communication, critical thinking, public speaking, interpersonal skills that really I developed through Volusia County schools.
know he has helped hundreds of students. He has helped hundreds of students get scholarships, and he has worked to change lives. And that is why he is Volusia County's Teacher of the Year.
It's a humbling thing to be chosen as Teacher of the Year. I do get to share, what we're doing here at Taylor in the AVID program and at Taylor in general, and speak for publication. I do get to do that, and I really want to, but the reason that I'm being honored for this is because my students did what I asked them to. That's really all it was. And, I see some of my seniors here in the front.
but we're going to start, and because there's plenty of time to catch up with this thing.
You drew the short straw. I sit next to you. I know I still know you.
Let me see if she's tried to contact.
No, listen, my Tootsie's rolling. I don't need any more.
Okay.
Thank you, though. You're my guy.
Everyone in their places there, nice shiny faces. All right, let's call this workshop to order here. So it is, what is today? March 28th. It's about 2 o'clock, and we're here on a special workshop session. The purpose of this meeting is to review the data from the survey that we sent out online, allowed everyone to participate, students, staff, family, friends, community member, people from out of town. I mean, anybody could participate in this survey. So we opened it up, and we ran it for how many days?
From March 11th to March 25th.
March 11th through March 25th. So my math tells me that's at least 14 days. So, so plenty of time for everyone to get their thoughts known. And I just want to say that I think it's important for us to all remember that as a school board, we do look at the big picture for all students. In our case, that's more than 63,000 of them, and policy decision makers that we have to look at the overall picture and understand that every decision that we make will have a ripple effect, particularly when it comes to schedules. If there's anything that speaks to it, it's like a schedule. When you change one, you change the other, and that's the way it goes. So I don't want anyone to think out there that this was just a random act by the board, that one day, one night, we didn't have anything to talk about, and we just said, hey, let's change the schedules, let's just cause mayhem out there. And no, that wasn't it. It was all sort of started really way back when the legislature decided to change state statute, and decided that it was important for elementary children to have a mandatory 20 minutes of recess each and every day. And once, of course, we have to comply with state statute. And when we went that route, we also learned that, hey, we can't afford to lose 20 minutes of instructional time every day. So what are you going to do? We sat down with the union during our negotiations, and we hammered out a 30-minute extension to the elementary school day that will start in the 1920 school year. So once we realized that we had to and was going to change the elementary school day, then we knew that that was going to have that ripple effect that we just spoke about, and that gave us pause to reflect on the great amount of research that has been done, particularly in the last, I'd say, 5 to 7 years, on what's best for high school students in terms of what is the best time of day for them to start their school day. And all of that research heavily suggested that it would be better for our high school students to start later in the day than what we are currently starting our high school students. So with that in mind, and with the elementary necessity to add the 30 minutes, we said, well, maybe it's a good time to tackle this issue once and for all. Our staff put together a committee made up of teachers, parents, staff. They met a couple of times, I believe. 5. That's more than 2. 5 times, and came up with 3 schedules. And I commend them. I just want to say that now, because I know that just takes a lot of work to come up with 3. And so they came up with 3. And again, those 3 were not produced by the board. Those were 3 produced by the committee, let's say, and those are the 3 that went out on the survey. Am I right so far? All right, good. So that's why we are kind of like where we are. I just wanted to give some kind of a preface to the presentation. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to Rachel Hazel. And Rachel, go ahead and take it away.
Well, good afternoon, Chairman Persis, school board members, and Superintendent Russell. Thank you for having us. We're excited to present this data to you. I am Rachel Hazel, Interim Chief Academic Officer, and I am joined by Greg Aiken, Chief Operations Officer, Elizabeth Albert, VIEW President, and Caitlin Isler, Coordinator of Learning Technologies. And as a team, we worked together to work with this committee to give you the information that you need to make a decision regarding our schedule. The committee, you are absolutely correct, and you said it very well, worked very hard to come up with solutions that would meet the needs of as many as possible. And we were very careful to say that because we knew going into this that change is hard and change is not always going to meet everyone's needs. So from the beginning and at every committee meeting, we were very, very clear that the task of the committee was not to make a decision about what was to be done, but rather to design a process and a survey and options that would give you all of the information that you needed to make the best and most informed decision that you could. So we hope we have accomplished that goal. And also a system that would give everyone a voice in the process. So our first slide, you really laid out very nicely, Mr. Persis, exactly where we are and how we got here. The negotiations concluded in November with our teachers union, and as a result of that, we developed this committee. You have a list of the committee members, which I have provided for you, both those that voted and people who came, and that was taken directly from the sign-in sheets. I'm going to let Ms. Albert talk about the meetings that we had, and then we'll give you the information and give you time to talk.
Thank you. So Elizabeth Albert, VIEW President. So what you have in front of you here are the 5 meeting dates that we convened the committee. The initial date, January 24th, was just to bring everyone together, introduce the task that was laid out in front of us, establish norms, review the process, and really get an overview and an initial understanding of the nuances, if you will, of transportation and what that whole process involves. I don't think I would be speaking out of context if I said that there was a lot of learning that was accomplished as it relates to transportation and what actually takes place. Moving 23,000 plus children every day through 3 levels of schools, elementary, middle, and high school. At that initial meeting, we also had our group break into subcommittees and begin the initial work on creating proposals. There were 5 groups, and there were 7 proposed schedules submitted that evening. And then as we progressed through the rest of the meetings that you see in front of you, it was a refining and an ongoing review of those proposals, and eventually we ended up with the 3 that were submitted. That's a very 30,000-foot view of the process, but that's how it unfolded.
That works.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So these are the norms that we employed at every one of our meetings. And just to reiterate what Ms. Hazel said previously, the committee worked extremely well together. We had administrators there, teachers there, we had parents there, community members, and I will tell you that no matter what perspective or what opinion one individual walked away with, the work of the committee was done collaboratively. It was a respectful process. There was open and genuine conversation that occurred, and it was impressive. And I am very proud to say that our folks, all of our folks, committed to the process and gave it their all. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to start off, my name's Greg Aiken, Chief Operating Officer. I want to start off by an example. And I know some of the survey questions and a lot of questions we had in committee, and the committee did an outstanding job because transportation is not just what time you're going to pick them up and what time you're going to drop them off. There's lots of moving parts. And so I think everyone learned, not just the committee members, but our transportation staff as well learned as we went through the process on how we need to educate the committee there to make sure they make a viable decision. So the slide you have in front of you right now, and if we start looking at and breaking it down, like you said, Mr. Persis, we have 63,000 students basically district-wide. We look at the numbers. At elementary school, we have 28,426 students currently enrolled. Middle school, 14,505, and then we have high school, 19,069 students. We have 1,148 pre-K or VPK students on our campuses every day. We look at transportation, we start pulling those numbers and breaking transportation down. Of the 63,000, 43,000 are eligible for transportation, so not all students are. We have that 2-mile walk zone. So we start looking at the data. The example you have in front of you right now is the elementary, middle, and high school, the day that we would have. It depends on what time you would pick up, but this is an example of this order we would pick them up, and the number of students currently riding transportation. You can, as we go from left to right on that chart, you can look at in-zone students, how many we transport for elementary school, 6,447, 448 are out-of-zone students, or for a total of 6,895 students we transport to elementary schools. The next 4 blocks that you have there, the first one is current AM pickup time. Right now, elementary school, with our current bell times that we have, we start picking up students, ESC students at 6:30 a.m., regular students at 7 a.m. for a 7:55 a.m. bell time. Under the new proposal, depends on which proposal the committee or the board decides this evening. In this example, the earliest we would be picking up would be 6:10 a.m. for ESC, and then 6:40 for regular ed. And then in the afternoon, basically is the last stop time for that particular run. For high school, elementary school right now at 2:15 p.m. Regular ed would drop off by 2:45, and then 3:15 for the EC students. Under the new bell time, in this example, would be 2:30, and then 3 o'clock and 3:30 would be that time. So we tried to explain all of this data for them, and so we started looking at some examples. Can we combine high school and middle school, or can you combine? And so we showed them all of the numbers. We looked at efficiencies and kind of explained a lot of the average bus occupancies, all the intricate parts of transportation. This slide currently is our current bell time that we have today. So I want to briefly go over that. High school normally starts now. It's a 7-hour and 15-minute day. Their routes vary for early pickup time. The earliest is about 5:30 a.m. currently right now for a high school student that's in an academy being transported to another school outside of their zone. Our arrival time at our high schools are at 6:45 a.m., and the bell times vary just a little bit, but historically they're at 7:25 a.m. We normally leave there in the afternoon. We arrive, they get out at 2:40, and we finish our last run about 3:05 in the afternoon. Elementary's next. It's a 6-hour and 10-day. We're actually going to put 30 minutes on that. They start at 7:55. You can see we have 33 minutes to run it by the time we drop off. At the high school, we have 33 minutes to run the elementary run to get to the elementary school so they can have breakfast and start their day. So one of the haves or must-haves is a more time for transportation. Ideally, you don't want to run late, our students late into any school. So having 40 to 45 minutes is ideal for transportation. Back when I first started in transportation, we used to have 45 minutes. We've eaten away from that over the years based on circumstances we won't go into today. So you can see the run times and the examples that we have, anywhere from 31 to 33 minutes is what we currently have today, and we do run late. Especially, it's a cascading event. We always run late in the afternoon to our middle schools. So we kind of explained all of that to our committee. The next slide is our first option. We have 3 options that our committee went through. And on this slide, the transportation option, we're looking at elementary school starting first at 6 hours and 40 minutes. Their bell time would be 7:40 in the morning, and dismissal time would be 2:20 p.m. in the afternoon. The next one will be high school, from a 7 hours and 15-minute day to a 7-hour day. We're looking at 40 minutes between that run time and the morning time. They start at 8:30 a.m. We drop the students off at 8 a.m., give them time to transition for breakfast, get ready for their day. They would dismiss at 3:30 p.m. That run time we would have would be 45 minutes in the afternoon between elementary and high school. Then the next run for this particular option would be middle school running last. They would start at 9:45 with 65 minutes for runtime between the morning time, 45 in the afternoon. They would get out at 4:30. One of the questions we had is how come you can't have or shrink that elementary time in the morning time a little shorter with the 65 minutes in between high school and middle school? When you start looking at transportation, it's the dismissal time. Ideally, if every school, elementary, middle, and high, all had the same hour day, you could do that. What we're dealing with here is elementary school at 6:40, middle school at 6 hours and 45 minutes, and a high school at 7 hours. So those time spans, we can't start at the same time and end at the same time and get our job done. So when we talked to our committee, we told them to look at the end time first. What time do you want the students out? And we'll back up the time to say what the start time would be. So we use that example for all three options that we have. So here, that's the reason we would have 65 minutes in between high school and middle school in the morning time. The next example is option 2. I should have went back, but we also have the teacher duty date listed on top, and we also have the bell-to-bell times that are there. The next option is once again starting elementary school at 7:20, getting out at 2 o'clock, same process. You can see we have between the elementary school and the middle school start time, they would be the second one starting instead of high school. In the other example, we would have 45 minutes in the morning time, 45 in the afternoon. They would get, middle school would start at 8:15, end at 3 o'clock. Our high school would start at 9:10. We would have 45 minutes in between dropping off middle school students and getting to the high school. And then in the afternoon, they would get out at 4:10, and we would have 55 minutes for that option. The next option is option 3. That option has high school, elementary, and middle school in that order like we currently have today. This start time is high school starting at 7 a.m., finishing at 2 a.m. with a 7-hour day, p.m., excuse me. And then we have elementary school starting at 8:20, getting out at 3 o'clock. In the morning time, you can see we'd have 70 minutes between high school and elementary school for operators to kind of pick up students. In the afternoon, we would have 45 minutes. Then we would go to the middle school next. We'd have 45 minutes in the morning time with a start time at 9:45 a.m. and then a p.m. 4 o'clock dismissal time. We would have 45 minutes to complete those routes.
Good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Disler, Coordinator of Learning Technologies, and I'm going to share with you an overview of the data and any other relevant information related to the survey instrument and results. We'll begin with reviewing the overall data associated with the survey through the PowerPoint presentation, preview the charts that are available, and then take a closer look at the variables to consider for your discussion this afternoon. You'll notice on this slide here the overall participation by indicator for the English and Spanish surveys. Please note this information is also located in your packet on page 3 and page 6. On the next slide, for each chart, I will assist you in orienting you to the data that's available. This chart is in reference to page 4 in your informational packet. This chart depicts the preferred options of those that completed the survey. By reading across each row, you can determine how the specific indicator group shared their opinion across all 3 options available. For example, you'll note in the first row, community members, 221 elected option 1, which is approximately 35% of all community members that took the survey. 128 elected option 2, which is approximately 20% of all community members that took the survey. And 278 elected option 3, which is approximately 44% of the community members that took the survey. Additionally, you'll note the last column indicates that in total, 627 community members completed the survey, which is approximately 2.6% of the 23,803 participants that completed the survey in all. If you read down each column, you can see how many people within a specific indicator elected that option. For example, in column 1, option 1, you'll note that it includes a breakdown of the quantity of participants and how that equates to the total number of responses within that category. 35% of community members elected option 1, 31% of parents elected option 1, and 29% of students selected option 1, and 35% of staff elected option 1. This is just an example in reading this chart and the information that's available. On the next slide, you'll see a chart in reference to if the board should consider delaying the implementation of a new bell schedule, and this is the overview of the data. This chart is in reference to page 4 within your packet. You'll note in the table the results are shown by indicator. Similar to the table we've previously viewed, you can read across each row to see how the specific indicator group elected their option. Additionally, you can read down each column to determine the breakdown of responses for yes, delay, or no, don't delay. For example, in column 1, yes, delay, you'll note that 50% of community members, 49% of parents, 50% of students, and 61% of staff elected yes in delay. And this is just an example, again, in reading the chart that you have access to. On the next slide, this chart is in reference to page 5 within your informational packet. It shows the number of participants that elected to leave any comments, suggestions, or considerations for the proposed bell schedule for school year 1920. This chart varies slightly from the previous ones that we viewed. Since it was not a required question, participants could elect to answer the question or not. For example, for row 1, community members, you'll note that 199 people left comments, and it shows 100%. That doesn't mean that all community members completed the open response, but all that took it within that category. That is why that depicts 100%. For example, you'll see 199 community members is approximately 3% of all participants that completed the open comments question on the survey. 3,094 parents left open comments, which is approximately 44% of all that completed that specific question. 2,721 comments were left by students, which is 38% of those that completed this question, and 1,101 comments were left by staff, which is approximately 16% that completed this question. And again, I apologize, it's a lot of information, but I thought it would be helpful to kind of orient what you're looking at, because when you compare the charts, if you use the same rule when you're looking at it, this one does vary slightly. On the next slide, this chart is in reference to page 7 within your packet. This chart shows the results of the Spanish survey and the number of participants by indicator. Similar to the preferred option overview for English, you can view across each row and down each column for details related to how participants elected their preferred option. On the next slide, this chart is in reference to page 7 within your informational packet. Within the survey, participants were required to answer if they would like the school board to consider delaying the implementation, similar to the English version. And again, you can view this by indicator. On the next slide, this chart is in reference to page 8 within your informational packet. It shows the number of participants that elected to leave any comments, suggestions, or considerations. Again, this is similar to the English version of the survey. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just share a few other details that are available for your discussion within the packet so that you know the data that is available to you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We'll transition over to your packet. I just want to make mention of a few page numbers so that you know the information that is available. During the PowerPoint presentation, we referenced the first few pages. On page 9 and 10, you'll note the details related to just community members and how they elected their preferred options for both the Spanish and English version of the survey. So that's on page 9 and 10, a breakdown of community member indicators. Pages 11 through 14 include additional information about the parents that completed the survey. Previously, we were looking at a big picture overview. This is diving deeper into this specific indicator. You'll note it includes a chart about a question related to if the parent also works for Volusia County Schools. The committee felt it was important to identify anyone that took the survey as a parent but could also be a staff member. You'll also note beneath some charts, it includes additional information related to those that may have started the survey but didn't complete it in full and how those numbers compare. So that might mean that someone started it on their cell phone, got distracted, and didn't finish it, and so you'll see that it recorded part of their answer. The numbers that we've been referencing in the overall data were related to those that actually selected an option, but that's why if you see any discrepancy in some numbers, you can see where maybe they got kicked out of the survey or they didn't complete it in full. Page 15 includes information related to the student results. You can see the breakdown of students by grade level that completed the survey. Additionally, on page 16, you can see how the students elected their preferred option and their associated grade level. This is also available in the Spanish version in the survey for page 17 and 18 in your packet. Page 19 includes information related to Volusia County staff. The committee felt it was important to distinguish between the roles of instructional staff, school-based administrators, district staff, and support staff. You'll note at the bottom of page 19, it shows the number of participants by staff member role. For example, 4,150 staff started the survey, noting that 4,093 completed it in full. And within that number of staff, 2,986 were instructional, 154 were school-based administrators, 193 were district staff, and 817 were support staff. Page 20 includes details related to how these specific staff members elected their preferred option. For instructional staff and school-based administrator roles only, we ask them to elect the grade level they teach or administer. You'll notice the chart at the bottom of page 20 shows the bell schedule preferences by grade level association for instructional and school-based administrators, and the committee felt like this was important to distinguish those staff members from the others. Page 21 includes a question and chart related to, as a Volusia County staff member, are you also a parent of a Volusia County aged child? The committee felt it was important to identify staff members that shared their opinions and if they were also parents of Volusia County aged children. Page 23 to 25, this data is also available in the Spanish version of the survey. As mentioned previously, the remaining pages of the full informational docket are also available online. We did not print all of the open comments, but it is available in full online. The last document that I would like to share, if you don't mind, is in reference to considering margins of error or variables when reviewing the data. So if you don't mind, this will be the last piece that I will share. There is an attachment, an additional informational packet. When the committee first came together, it was discussed if we should allow a device to complete the survey more than once. The committee determined that we would want to allow multiple responses from a device to be submitted. Such cases included parents or families that have one shared device at home, and one administrator within the committee mentioned the desire to bring devices out to parents at parent pickup for them to elect their preferred option. In order to provide appropriate access, it was determined that devices could submit more than one entry. To best avoid duplications or participants submitting multiple responses to the survey, we ask that they include an email address for reporting purposes. After the survey closed, we were able to view all email addresses that were submitted for the survey results. All of the raw data of the was downloaded and imported into Excel to determine any duplicates or multiple submissions that were made by a single email address. And that's what's in this packet here. You'll notice the table on the front of the packet includes information related to any email address that has 2 or more entries within the survey. I'd like to share how this information was collected to ensure you have an accurate picture for your discussion today. You'll note there's a lot of information on this table. I'd like to share how it correlates to the overall results. Please reference the bottom of the table on the margin of error packet that's labeled totals to best read the data that's available. I've included multiple sources to consider. The second column indicates 934 participants used an email address to submit 2 or more entries within the survey. Considering that information, it means that 1,979 entries were started or submitted by those email addresses. And you can see we're kind of working our way across that bottom row. Out of the 1,979 that were started, 258 didn't finish and they didn't select an option, so they would not have been included within the total. That means that 1,721 entries were included by these email addresses. Since each email address would have one valid response, we can subtract 934 from 1,721 because that 934 were those email addresses that we had associated to it. That equals 787 entries that are over the number of email addresses that would be used. So this would say there's approximately a 3.3% margin of error to consider when reviewing the results because there were multiple entries made under those email addresses. When reviewing the overall results, it doesn't appear that the margin of error heavily impacts those results. Additional information related to how these multiple entries were tallied are included within the packet, and additionally on the back of the packet, you'll see the margin of error and consideration for the Spanish survey. I understand that was a lot of information, but I thank you for the opportunity to just orient you to the data that you have available so that you understand what you're able to view and discuss this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. That was excellent.
So that
you lost me after the first 4 minutes, I think, but that's okay. Let me ask you a question, Caitlin. The survey did identify students, elementary, middle, and high school.
Yes,
Yeah.
Elementary, middle, high, and also combination schools as well.
Great. And I was just doing some math when you were talking, and it looks like, and you can check my math, but it looks like we had about 1% of the elementary students of the total respond, about 15% of middle school students, and about 28% of high school students. Now, with parents, though, we don't really know if they were parents of elementary students or middle school students or high school. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did not include a question, and we are not able to pull that data, so we are not sure those parents that responded, the age of their children.
Right. So we don't know who they
Correct.
were.
And we discussed recently, too, I think that would also have a lot of variables as well, because a parent might be elementary and high school, elementary, middle. So
Sure.
Unfortunately, we did not ask that question within the
No
survey.
worries. No worries. I think we have enough data, so that's okay. Rachel, is it going back to you? Is that what's happening?
Well, that concludes our overview of the data. We wanted to make sure that we gave you plenty of time to have a discussion. I just want to say thank you to the people. When I realized, thank you, Caitlin, when I realized the magnitude of the survey, I knew just the person to call, and you can see why. She did a great job helping the committee work through a survey. Creating this was no simple task, and she did a great job with that. And this was the first time that Ms. Albert and us as the district had worked together on a project of this magnitude, and it went very, very well. We got some positive comments from committee members, and we do have committee members in the audience as well that took time to come, and I just wanted to thank them as well.
Why don't we take a second to recognize them? Committee
Stand
members,
up.
would you like to stand and show you our appreciation? Were you going to, or did you? I'm kind of zoning in and out, so excuse me. The survey question you mentioned, I think, Rachel, about 50% said, should we consider it now or should we consider it later?
Yeah, let's go back to that slide. I think we have some comments we can make there.
That's it.
Yeah. You want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so when you start looking at the data, if you look at the committee members, the parents, and the students, you just look at just that group. That group alone says, no, don't delay. When you add in the county staff to that, which is overwhelmingly 61% said delay. So the overall is very close, right? So you've got a very close margin there. 12,238 said delay, 11,565 said move on with it. Sure. So when you start looking at that data, you know, the community says move on, staff are saying, hey, let's take another look.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Okay, wait, someone's pointing to the slide. Did you have a question out there? No? Yes? No?
It is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. It's
yes.
Yes. Yes. For all intents and purposes, we'll call it that. So,
50-50.
Now, let's see, before you all leave here, you all stay there, and well, good. Okay, great. See if we have some questions, and then we can kind of talk amongst ourselves. Board members, this is very, informal, but please look to me if you'd like to ask a question so we can keep it as orderly as possible. Okay, Mr. Cologne.
So as I have stated before, one of the duties we have as a school board is to look at the big picture. And from the time that it was, and I've said this before, from the time that we agreed to add the additional 30 minutes to today, a lot of things have changed. Many of these things outside of our control. From the legislature, from the governor, textbook adoption, Common Core, a lot has changed. I did read some commentary somewhere where they said, what was the school board thinking doing all of this at the same time? And the reality is that the ERP, which is our business system, which we're implementing in July, that's been planned for years. The SIS, which is our student management system, has been in the works for years. So the go live date was set for July 1st. The math and the reading implementation are things that, as we learned in our last school board meeting, we must do, and our students deserve, and our teachers are begging for it. When this decision was made, there was conversation, but no exact on how we were going to roll out the required mental health training for our staff. So that's 5 things that we're changing, many of which were in the works prior to all of this. And so when I see the numbers and the request to delay, I was actually pretty surprised. But it's mathematical. We made this mathematical. And if you average out from the teachers, the parents, and the community, it averages out to 53%. More importantly, the folks that are most affected by this change, at 60%, are saying, we can't handle all of this. Now, as a board, we chose to make this mathematical. That was a decision we made. And I think it was a great decision, because otherwise we would have possibly made a decision that may not have been in line with the folks that are most affected by it. But we chose to make it mathematical, and me being a numbers person, when 53% average, now the parents, they have no idea about the SIS. They have no idea about the ERP. They have no clue of what it's going to take for a teacher who's never taught with a textbook to learn to teach with a textbook. Yet at 49 I'd say 50%, or being a numbers person, 49, close to 50, they also felt the need to hold off. So as a board, seeing that we made this mathematical, seeing as we're looking at the whole picture, seeing as we're tasked with looking at the entire picture, I think it's pretty clear to me that the answer is hold off. Because there are 6 things that we're going to roll out on July 1st, but only one of them we control, and it's this one. So I think it's mathematical for me. Thank you.
Okay, so just to be clear, whether it's the schedule we have now or any other schedule that we may choose to adopt, the other 5 things are still going to happen.
Correct.
Right.
And one other thing, sorry, Mr. Persis.
Yeah.
When we look at page 20, where we looked at our school-based administrators, you know, this is where this becomes interesting. Should we opt to wait? Because all 3 of the different categories, the majority voted for something different, which means there's no consensus there either. Right. And so I think we'll have the opportunity, because again, we made it mathematical, we'll have the opportunity to sort of dive into why they feel the way that they feel. And again, these are the folks most affected, and our school-based administrators are the ones who are going to have to show the face for the decision that we make tonight.
Right. I disagree with your rationale on it. I understand if you add it all together, it could come out that sort of way. But the way I see it, and certainly I don't want to speak for anyone else, but the way I see it is we're going to have these 5 other changes. And whether the school day starts at 8 or 7:30 or 8:30, the same 5 changes are going to be there. The same task in confronting the teachers is still going to be there. The same amount of time in the school day is still going to be there. So from the staff point of view, they're going to be faced with those same 5 things. None of those 5 things are going to go away. Those are the 5 things that are going to affect their time and training and having to learn new things. The time you show up for work is just, to me, just a minimal consequence. I mean, whatever your time is to show up for work, that's the time you show up for work, and whenever your workday ends, that's when your workday ends. So I think what needs to drive us clearly is if you decided as a board not to go forward with this today, after putting out a survey for 14 days and getting 25,000, how many people?
Just over 23,000.
Getting 24,000 people to respond, and I don't know how many wrote comments, but
7,115.
Over 7,000 to write comments, and then only to say, well, we're not sure. We're going to kick it back another year. I think it just as people would say, or I would say, so what do we do all that? You know, why have we been spending all this? Why'd you send the survey out, and why'd you get all this input about different options of school times and da-da-da-da-da? So to me, it was really amazing that, because most people don't like change at all. And so when it was even close, I mean, I was surprised, because I would think, you know, normally, you know, I like my schedule the way it is, and I don't want to change it, so don't change my schedule, and just let's keep it the way it is. But when even, I thought it'd be way more the other way, but when even half the people said, yeah, go ahead, change it, and then the other half said, they didn't say don't change it, they said consider not changing it. So, I mean, that's where I am now, but I want to get other board members to comment or ask questions before I get back to you, because I don't want you and me to go back and forth. Go ahead, Ms. Haynes. Oh, Ms. Cuthbert, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'd like to make some comments about the results and the parents and students all had, as well as bring up some issues that I'm concerned about. I noticed in the results of the survey that option 3 was the most popular. I do have concerns with option 3, especially at the high school level, their start time, and they get out early, which is great for jobs and athletics, but I still think those kids are going to be up late at night. I saw the comment where we were supposed to buy more buses. Buses are very expensive. They're a little over $100,000 a piece.
$110,000 just for the bus itself.
Just for the bus. We have a shortage of bus drivers right now. We purchase in our budget about 25 buses a year, $2.5 million that we devote to that, because a lot of our buses run out of mileage. We have to retire them. And these are just to replace our buses. The state legislature that we heard on Tuesday that Dr. Hall and Ms. Mueller presented to us was that we may have to go from a 2-mile to a 1.5-mile radius to bus our students. We would need more buses for that one, and you said we would need 7? 7.
If you look at the calculations that we use and the number of students that are riding right now and say that's what's going to happen with the reduction with that half-mile, we're looking at approximately 600 students across all 3 levels total. We would need approximately 7 more buses and some more operators.
Okay, so that's with bus drivers and everything. It's almost $1 million.
Correct. We have the buses, so we would have to hire the bus operators. So we have buses that we could use, but we'd have to hire some more operators. And maybe attendance based on the IEP of those students. But right, they should be riding, so it'd just be operators, I would think.
So that could discombobulate the schedule. We'd have to put more on the routes. We'd have to stop more. Would that spread the time?
Well, no, that wouldn't do any more time. So what we would do, it would add more stops, right? Yes. So we've got approximately 4,400 bus stops currently right now. And so we would add additional stops for inside that half mile that we would look at.
So we'd have to pack more minutes between start times.
We would have to work it into whatever schedule we have. And if we have to add that to the 31 minutes we currently have now, it would make us later. If we selected one of these options, we could accommodate that within a time limit that we would have. Okay, thank you. Also, there were many different views. And a lot of parents were very concerned about their work schedules. Some said keep the same schedule, and we can't keep the same schedule because we are out of compliance for one issue, and I think it's the teacher-to-student ratio, correct? The contact time of teachers with elementary students. We're okay when it comes to academic minutes, but out of compliance with teacher to student. Am I correct in that assessment?
Let Ms.
Hazel
address
what specifically are we out of compliance with?
All right, so there's a lot I'm going to give you a very complicated answer to what seems like it should be a pretty simple question. When you look at what are the number of minutes that we are required to have our students in elementary seat time, we're fine. We have the number of minutes that we need. The state changed the formula several years ago, not several years ago, actually just 3 years ago, I believe. And Tina Skipper is going to get me if I get this wrong. I'm going to do my best. She's really the expert in this, but they changed the formula on how we are funded. Before there was a certain limit of minutes that you had to be in the seat, and anything above that was just like extra. Now we are paid in actual time. So there is the way our system reports and the way the state system reports is different. And there we need the reporting module. The extra time is to accommodate the reporting part of that. So we do have a reporting issue. That was that was not as clear as I could have made it, but that was where that statement came from.
So just, I think you articulated
No, right. As far as minute to minute, like if you look at what does the state statute require that our kids are in school, we meet that. Now, we are tight sometimes with hurricanes, and when we look at do we have to forgive days, we're very tight there, and you want to build that in. And if you add up what the recommendation subject per subject is, that's very different than what the minimum amount of time a child is in school for. So, for instance, if the recommendation is 60 minutes for math instruction, 60 minutes for science instruction, and it's different for primary versus intermediate. And our intermediate, the subject's time that would be required for students is more than what we currently have.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I just want to make sure the public understands we have really no choice, but we have to change the elementary day. We have a lot of question about how we're going to be funded this year from the state legislature. It does look, after Tuesday's budget relook, and we know it's always going to change, it does somewhat look bleak. how things are going to change, and especially how the legislature is going to fund public education versus, especially in the Florida Education Finance Program, the FEFP, the voucher issue and the charter school issue is very concerning, and also our ability to, all this transportation. So I noticed, I do agree with Mr. Colon in his, we do have 2 computer systems that we have to learn. There's additional elementary texts now that we voted for. There are 2 of those. It's training times for all that. We will more than likely have curriculum changes for teachers to go from modules to textbooks. Security and safety, I'm very concerned about, because I don't know if the state or if the nation, and our Senator Rubio has recommended that we go nationally to daylight savings time. But what that does, it gives us afternoon and evening daylight, but it sacrifices morning time when our kids are at the bus stop. It is very dark the majority of our school year, and those kids are sitting at bus stops and it's black. It's just barely light at 7 right now. So when you consider our 10-month time period going to school, the majority, the majority of the time, kids, whatever level they're going to be in, when they're picked up by the bus, are going to be in the dark. And we've had quite a few accidents in front of schools. Yes, sir?
Yeah, so we've had 6 pedestrian accidents this year total. So I think we've done a very good job over the years to reduce those numbers. We have approximately 7,000 walkers or bikers every day, and about 23,000 bus riders currently right now. A lot of our bus drivers, our riders, you can see in the other scenarios, a lot of them are picked up in the dark currently right now at 6:30 in the morning.
And I'm concerned about the kids who ride their bikes, especially elementary students riding their bikes in those bike lanes or on the sidewalk. And kids gather on the bus stops on the sidewalks, and they could be mowed down by bicyclists. So I'm very concerned about the security and safety of our students at the bus stops, and especially when we do not know for sure if we're going to stay with daylight savings time. It is dark a very long period of time. So a lot of comments also were questioning, they were demanding of the school district, therefore, to watch their children in the morning and in the afternoon. So I do know there's supervision for elementary teachers in the morning. I would like to know, are we going to need more supervisors? And can the district pay for these supervisors to be on campus and alert for our students at this time? Is that feasible for us?
Yes.
Mr. Superintendent?
As I've discussed with different board members, we do know that year 1 with the supervision issue, with the change, with the additional 15 minutes for the teachers, that we will have to review the supplements and the schedule, and that was an issue that we know that we would have to work through this first year.
Okay, and Ms. Albert, do you think we will have teachers to volunteer, additional teachers to supervise?
Well, I can tell you,
have the supplements.
Well, I can tell you with the change in the contractual hours to 7 hours 15 minutes, we are actually losing time outside of the student contact time. So we have 2 frames of time. We have the student day time, and then we have outside. Right now, it is a daily average of 30 minutes outside that student day that teachers have for planning. And at some schools, there is paid supervisory duty, and then there's rotational supervisory duty. With the changes in the contract, we have limited those rotational pieces now to 36 opportunities a year. So unless there is a shift in the funding for paid supervisory duty, I can tell you that that is going to be a significant impact if we implement when we only go to 7 hours 15 minutes. In that 3rd year, when we go to 7 hours 30 minutes for teacher contract time at the elementary level, it should right itself, and it should shift back to what we have now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's nice to know that. And I think it's, I worry about the stress that it would put, especially when we have all these new issues on administrators and trainers who have to do all the training. That's an awful lot to get in. I'm also concerned about absenteeism. If we go, and option 3 was very popular, absent at high schools, having taught my whole career in high school, I'm very concerned because that's where we are held accountable by the state in 9th grade through 12th grade. Their graduation, passing the FSA so they can get a diploma, absenteeism, certification, our academies, workforce abilities. This is where we concentrate the success of our children, and we are held accountable, especially at the high school level. This is when our students need to mature to the point where they will excel so they can move on through their, and also be successful in the SAT and ACT and other tests, so they can go on to the next level, whether it be technical, workforce, military, or to the college level. So that's very precarious for students, especially if high school students have to get up at 7. Now, I always got up at 5 to be at school by 7 in order to start class at 7:29. That meant if this changes to 7, I'd have to get up at 4:30. That's awfully, awfully early, awfully early. Otherwise, you're going to have people moving in. You know, you think kids are going to be moving in to hurry up to park to get into their classes. Teachers are going to be doing the same thing, just sliding in. So I'm very concerned. If anything, there is one start or stop time with each option that I'm concerned about. I just wanted to let you know what my thoughts were. Let's see, option 1, I'm concerned about the start time for middle school, 9:45. If there's any way we can reduce that so that they can start earlier and get out earlier. Option 2, high school starts, you know, that would be an ideal time, but getting out at 4:10 is almost, that's not a good idea. And then the start time in option 3 for high school, 7 o'clock, that's much too early, and all scientific research is against students start, especially high school students who need that rest, starting even before 8 o'clock. So those are my concerns and my comments at this time.
Yeah, well said.
So,
just a couple of things. As far as the daylight saving time thing goes, you know that Florida has often floated that idea out there. You know, it has to get approved by Congress.
Yes.
And you know, there isn't any state in the nation. Arizona does not observe daylight savings time.
They don't change.
So what Florida wants to do is observe it all the time. Florida, of course. So, I mean, the chances of this getting approved by Congress are, you know what.
Well, I'm concerned even if our state
The state can't
So,
do it
yeah,
without
I'm very
without
concerned
Congress
about
saying that. So that's not going to happen, likely. Ms. Haynes, do you have any questions for this astute panel here?
So I've reviewed all of the results.
You kind of pull that mic up there. Thank you. Sorry.
I've reviewed all of the results. I've read not every comment, but a lot of them. Some of us joined the board after this decision was already made. And so therefore we were not participants in the discussion that truly happened to state why this decision was made. So I still think there's some confusion because I heard Ms. Cuthbert say, so we have to do it because it's a legislative reason. I have not seen a piece of legislation that says that we have to do this. So I'm hearing about reporting in Tina Skipper's office and all that, and so I think I need a clearer response as to why this was negotiated, okay? I heard what you said when you started.
Right.
I've heard what her thought is on it. I have asked this question already before, and I just can't seem to wrap my head around, and I'm not against the fact that it was negotiated. I just need to know why, and not the why of, well, this is what we think people want to hear. I want to know the real reason why it was negotiated and who is benefiting?
Well, we can get to the why.
Why?
The benefiting, we don't know yet. So Ms. Hazel and Ms. Albert were both there. Mr. Aiken, I think, were there too. So there are 3 people right here that can tell you exactly how this came about. And I see they're both anxious to start. So I know, flip a coin. And Ms. Hazel, go ahead.
Okay, I will give an answer, but I want to preface it with I was a member of the bargaining team. I was on the board's bargaining team and was a member who was there. So I was privy to a lot of conversations. And I'm being very honest when I tell you, I don't believe there was one single reason, like we have to have it for this. It was a combination of looking at a lot of different things. This is not the first negotiation session where the board has considered this. When the contract, my understanding, I believe it's Ms. Albert's understanding, historically, the contract had always read previously that secondary, middle, and high school teachers have a 7.5-hour work day. And I always am very careful when I say that. I even hate to bring this up because I don't know of any teacher who only works 7.5 hours a day, much less 8 hours a day, much less 12 hours a day. When you sign up to be a teacher, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. However, I do know that the contract previously said that middle and high school teachers were 7.5 hours, elementary school teachers were 7 hours. When sick leave is calculated, when hourly rate is calculated, it was based on a 7.5-hour day. So there was not an equalization there. Now I understand there's arguments against all of these, so and powerful ones. However, I think they stood back, looked at the whole picture. And the fact of the matter is, and having been a former elementary school principal, I can tell you when you're trying to schedule things out, particularly science, and I'm going to point to science at the 5th grade level, it is very difficult to fit in all of the subjects that you need to fit in and then a mandatory recess. It is very true that most, if not all of our elementary schools offered recess. What I think there is a little bit of a misunderstanding is with the physical activity requirement versus recess. There's a 150-minute per week physical activity requirement. The typical special area under our old schedule was 35 minutes. Depending on how many special area teachers you had PE 2 or 3 times a week. So you either had 70 or 105 minutes per week. The rest was to be made up, physical activity, structured instructional physical activity, was to be made up by the classroom teacher. And then in addition to the 150 minutes. So that was typically done through some kind of structured recess on non-PE days. Then in addition to that, there now was the 20 minutes of required recess per day, and it says that in statute. So like I said, it depends grade level to grade level because each one has different requirements. But one of the things that we did struggle with was how do you fit all of those things in? That was one of the considerations and one of the things that was talked about at the table. We did have a conversation, we had several conversations about the reporting of our minutes and the funding of the minutes. There were several conversations about with our principals who were on the committee about the timing of the day and the schedules of the day. So I can't give one specific.
So if I may,
Yes.
and I want to just preface my comments by stating that I too was a member of the bargaining team, and this was the most contentious part of the bargaining that began, let's remember, it began in May and ended at the end of October. So this one particular item was the biggest hurdle that we had to overcome. We opposed the addition of these minutes from the beginning, and this is not a surprise. Ms. Hazel was there. We've talked about it many times, just for the reason that we've discussed here. There is no clearly defined reason to do this. There was no pin that you could stick into one item and say, you know, that's it. We talk about the equity amongst the different levels of instruction. One might argue that at a 7.5-hour day for secondary, if we have 7 periods and we have anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes between bell change, well, right there's your extra half hour. We could talk about that. We could talk about the fact that at the elementary level, there are so many additional responsibilities that go beyond the 7-hour day, as far as contacting parents, having conferences, making phone calls, doing paperwork that's not necessarily done at the secondary. You know all of this, Ms. Haynes. You're a teacher, right? Mm-hmm. So there was that conversation. Recess has occurred in our schools since the dawn of time. And for many, many, many years, we've been able to teach our kids, and we've also been able to let them participate in recess. Yes, it's unfortunate that people that don't know about educating kids have now put this into a law and it's mandated. That's unfortunate. But from the beginning of time, we've had recess. Imagine you took your kids out for recess and still found a way to get it all done. The minute reporting compliance piece, we've already talked about the fact that as far as the statute reads, we are in compliance. Are we maximizing our funding? Perhaps not, but we are not out of compliance as far as reporting our minutes to the state. So again, these are just a few reasons why we opposed this. We knew that if this change were to occur, it would be a ripple effect across all 3 levels of education in our district for our 63,000 students, plus their families and community members and everyone else. And it was not until we got to the impasse that we realized now it's time to manage this. And in that realization, knowing that it was going to be decided by the previous board, we had to shift gears, and we tried to manage this change. Do we agree with it? Absolutely not. Can we find a clear reason why we are doing this? Absolutely not. But what has become evident with working with my new friends here, and I think the committee members have learned, that this is really a transportation issue. This is an opportunity to fix and this is not, we've had this conversation, this is not something that really, in any of the information that I've been that's been shared with me, is driven by what we do with our kids. This is a transportation problem, and the door has now opened to fix it this way.
Yeah, because back, and I'm going to comment on the transportation piece, and she knows I've talked to you about it as well. Mm-hmm. So when we went we started out with 8 early release days and went to 36 that we currently have today. We, instead of adding the day and making the changes to the bell times, what we did was we changed the bell times, but we shrunk transportation. So when I first started in 2003, we had 40 to 45 minutes in between runs. Today we have 31 to 33. So there's where we had the problem was caused by, that time frame. I would like, if you don't mind, I don't know whether you want, I have something that would kind of help. It's another slide. Our peer districts, their start and end times, I think would be relevant here. Yeah. If you don't mind me taking just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's part of your slideshow too, if you would like to look at that. I'm going to look at 3 school districts and tell you their hour day, and then you can look at their start and end times that kind of looks at like what we have. We can start with Orange County first.
Okay, excuse me, where's this?
This is in, if you just go, if you click past where it says discussion, additional information, that's the next on your slide. So to be 3 down from where we were at discussion.
Thank you.
Can you see it okay now? Okay, so I'm just going to look at 3 school districts, right? So Orange County, obviously it's a large school district, and if you look at the slide, I'll kind of go through it real quick. Orange County tells you student enrollment And then it talks about number of students transported. It looks at average bus occupancy. That's your efficiency and how much money you get from the state. The next option is the number of routes they actually run per day. And then we get into the bell times. That's the third from the end, from the right, the second and first. So we look at Orange County. They have a 6-hour and 5-minute elementary day. Their middle school is 6 hours and 30 minutes. Their high school is a 7-hour day. You can look at their start times currently now. Excuse me. Their high school starts first at 7:20 with an elementary school at 8:45. And then their middle school starts at 9:30. And you can see what time they get out, 3:57 for the middle school is the latest time they get out. Go down to Polk County, which you skip Pinellas, go down to Polk County. Same thing running all the way through. Polk County has their elementary day is 6 hours and 55 minutes. Their middle and high schools are both 7-hour days. So they get more instructional time in front of their teachers at Polk County. Seminole County is right next to us, right? And so looking at their hour day, and they're down in the middle of the slide here. Elementary day is 6 hours and 30 minutes, middle school is 6 hours and 35 minutes, and high school is 7 minutes. They have a 3-tier operation as well. 7 hours, excuse me. And when you look at their average bus occupancy, they have more buses transporting not too many more students that we have. So that means they are hiring more staff and more operators, not cost efficient. And they don't have the time, and I did this before, they don't have the 40 or 45 minutes in between runs to do a 3-tier. They're doing a 2-tier operation there. So therefore, they're losing funding. More funding comes out of the general fund coming back to us. But we did review all of this with our committee as well, and I wanted to kind of go over it briefly with you. I know we talked about it before, but you do have that information as well. There are high schools that start as early as 7 a.m., and there's high schools that start at 9 a.m. So they range throughout the state as well through the review that we looked at here.
That's interesting to see when you see all the districts. Hi, Ms. Haynes. Yes. And hello, Ms. Wright. Yes, hello, Ms. Welcome. Yes.
I'm not finished.
Oh, I understand. Go ahead.
I know. I just wanted to kind of put this in there.
So I think basically to answer your first question, though, the first question as to the why, I think it got down to the, from what I heard, the mandatory 20 minutes of recess, even though some folks did it. It wasn't consistent across the district that every elementary teacher gave 20 minutes of recess every single day, and now they would have to. There was always this discussion with the board about the elementary teachers' day being paid for, was it a 7.5-hour day, but only being at the job site, required to be at the job site for 7 hours. As an elementary principal, I get it. So that was always out there too. I think those were the two things. And I will tell you, the board, the 5 of us, it was a very strong point with this board that we extend that day. And perhaps one other underlying reason may have been our elementary scores overall in the district hadn't been going up, they'd been going the other way. And while, you know, as a teacher, there's a number of reasons why that could be, certainly it was out there in our thinking. Would a little more time help? Would it take some of that crunch feeling off, take that pressure off of the teachers if they had more time? Because we always heard the comment, there's not enough time in the day to do everything we're supposed to do. Those are kind of 3 things I remember, but go ahead and continue.
So I appreciate 3 of you giving me reasons why. And Mr. Persis, I appreciate you sharing with Mr. Clone and I, since we were not sitting here, some of the reasons why you guys felt that this was very important. So I've heard all 3 reasons. What I didn't hear was that there was any legislative piece that we were not meeting, that we had to meet. The 7 versus 7.5-hour day has been a discussion for as long as I've been here, okay? That has been there. And I, having taught at elementary and at secondary, you know, can have mixed feelings on it, you know, either way. I've heard a lot out there start bubbling up about the transportation piece. And having previously been in a position where I've had to work directly with transportation for different things, and I've shared sometimes my thoughts on the bus driver's contract. I think the bus drivers are phenomenal people, and I appreciate what they do, and I don't know that I could do their job, okay? And so I have the utmost respect for them. But even when I'm looking at this chart that is now displayed, and we're looking at like what is Orange doing, or Polk, or even Seminole, I heard Mr. Aiken, you make the statement though that they're not running cost effective or being efficient in what it's costing, and that money would come out of general funds. I say this repeatedly, and I'm going to say it again. I've spent 32 years of my life dedicated to educating the children in Volusia County. I came to work every day, and I still come to work because my job is to do what's best and right for children. That is the only reason any of us are here. If the children were not here, none of us would have this position. I am all for cost effectiveness when it makes sense. When the cost effectiveness becomes more important than the education of the children or making the best decision for the children, I am not for the cost effectiveness. And I've got a degree in accounting. I'm all about math and numbers and saving money. But we're given money, and it comes down to how do we utilize that funding, because we're given the money to educate the children. I have said from the minute we started looking at all of this, I have concerns for each level, elementary, middle, and high. But as a parent and now a grandparent, the one statement I have said when asked by the community members is this: not that I don't think high school students need supervision at times and that they don't make the best decisions, but I could require my 16-year-old, if he or she needed to get themselves to a bus stop if I have had to leave and go to work. But I, as a parent, would also have to follow up to make sure that they did that. And I did that when my kids were in high school or middle school. I went to work before they went to middle school. And I had to put some things in place. But when we look at starting elementary children later, 5- and 6-year-olds cannot be left at home alone. And that's what's going to happen. And that has been my thing for, I see how the results have come out. I see what the options are, but I cannot propose or support anything that's going to say that single mom has to go to work and she's left that 5- and 6-year-old at home alone because she can't afford pre-care as well as aftercare. She's already having to do one of those. I can't support 5- and 6-year-olds not having a time in which parents can make sure that they have put them at the bus stop to get on that bus safely, or they are able to drop them off in the morning and know that they are safe on campus before they go to work. Now, everybody that has middle and high school students out there, you can argue this with me. I've had my kids through all 3 levels. And there's more responsibility that comes with as you get older, and you have to learn and be trained. And my thing with option number 3, because I also looked at the breakdown of where we're falling with elementary, like how did staff vote, okay? 8:20, most parents already have to be at work. They're not gonna be able to make sure those little people get on buses. And as I said, if we need to maybe not be so cost efficient in the transportation area to make this work, we need to rethink this.
Okay, so do you mind if I answer the efficiency piece on that one?
Yeah,
Kind of go back to.
I think I can anticipate what you're going to be saying, but go ahead.
So every dollar, for every student that rides on transportation currently right now, we get what we call an FTE funding. It's based on your average bus occupancy. So every bus that's out there, you want to have at least 100 students in a 3-tier process to obtain the maximum dollars. Here in Volusia County, we get $412 roughly per student to ride the bus. Based on that, it costs us more than $412 to transport that child. So we have to get some money from the general fund currently today, approximately 3.5% of our operating budget in transportation out of the general fund. If we increased additional buses, bus operators, or et cetera, to do whatever we need to do, that means that'd be less money out of the general fund to be used in the classroom. And so I think it's a double-edged sword. I agree 100%. I think student safety is paramount, whether it's at the bus stop, walking to school, or parents dropping them off early prior to school starting and supervision being there. I can tell you today we have students that are elementary school that are in the dark waiting for the buses. There are statutory language that actually states that it's a parent's responsibility also to make sure that their child is safe, not only to and from school, but also from the bus stop each and every day. We do have here in Volusia County pre-K elementary and first grade students must be met both in the morning and in the afternoon off that bus, because we don't want them to be walking home from our standpoint alone, or have someone responsible be there to receive that child or change of custody back into us. So I do agree. I'm not saying it's all about money, but it is also about money, right? So, I mean, it is
all about money.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead. I'll let you, and then Ms. Wright, I'll let you.
If we can pull the slide back up that you referenced a minute ago with the other counties and their routes. So if you look, we're sitting at currently transporting 23,033 students with 208 routes. If you go down to Brevard, which they're transporting a little over 1,000 more than us with 407 routes. If you go down to Osceola, they are transporting almost 2,000 more than us, but with 325 routes. And if you go down to Escambia, they're transporting about 1,000 more with 329 routes. Even Lake, who's transporting 2,000+ less than us, has 250 routes. So we have the smallest number of routes, even in comparison to other districts, for the number of students we're transporting.
Yes, and if you look at geographically, Seminole County is very small compared to us. We're the size of Rhode Island. When you start looking at some of this, there's lots of variables that go into transportation and needs for buses. One of those would be traffic, right? Obviously, traffic issues, the more condensed a city is, and getting through the red lights and getting to schools is more complicated. And if you look at their average bus occupancy, they're getting minimum dollars from the state based on their transportation. That means more funds are coming from the general fund to offset that cost. So I mean that's a decision the board can make. You can say, I want another 174 buses and operators. We're going to give you all the money out of the general fund, and we could be receiving minimal funding for transportation and have more routes and try to find the operators to make that happen. So their decision and why they do what they're doing is based on what they currently have. I can tell you district-wide, and I talk to a lot of these directors all the time, they're short operators as well. So they may have those number of routes, but they're not running, they don't have the staffing level, and they're having problems getting staffing as well.
Ms. Haynes, you still have the floor.
I defer to Ms.
Okay. We'll have more time to discuss. Ms. Wright, again, welcome.
Thank you. And I hear what you're saying, Jamie. But when I ran for school board, my number one concern was my child standing at night to catch a bus in elementary. And I really do have a problem with that.
I do too.
I have a problem. And so I'm in favor of the 8:20, and I'll tell you why. Even though I had to be to work at 8, and my son had to go to Ormond from Daytona Beach because he was out to Weaver Zone for Ormond.
Ormond Middle?
No, for
Pine Trail,
elementary.
Pathways.
Ormond,
Tomoka.
Osceola, Ortona.
No, up the newer one.
Oh, Pathways.
Pathways.
We initially,
How
thank
quickly
you.
we forget.
Yes,
Ms.
yes,
Wright.
Lord.
Come on.
We were zoned for Pathways, and that was one of my reasons why I decided not to send my child to Ormond to school. I looked at private school because I did not like the fact he had to catch the bus at 6:45. And right now at 6:45, even though it's almost literally in front of my house, it's pitch black. We have 85 kids that have to stand outside at that time of the morning to catch a bus. And we are, as adults, we're fine. But we really do have to look at elementary. And one of the things I've said, and this is not an easy solution for the simple reason it's multifaceted, because I'm a big fan of community schools. And when you're taking kids in 32114, which is my community, 85% of my kids are bussed out of my community. Yeah, they are. 85%. They're the ones. See, everybody else who in here, your kids are not bussed, but mine are. And I do take that to heart, because that's really early in the morning. I don't care if the parents work or not. Standing at a bus stop at 6:45, pitch black, is a problem to me. So I don't think it's going to be an easy solution. Again, I'll go back to say that's why when we talk about things like this, it is sensitive. But are we doing best? Busing is not really the issue. It's really community schools that's the issue. Mm-hmm. And I know it's the funding. I know funding is the problem. I get that. But when we start looking at how we put kids and ship kids to school, we need to be looking at community schools, because really elementary kids should go to school in their communities. They should not be bused out of their communities.
So we do, just so everybody kind of knows, we have 11 particular islands in the east side of our county that do get transported outside their zone schools closer than where they're currently going. And I think that's what Dr. Wright's, or Ms. Wright's speaking about.
Okay. Ms. Copley, do you have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Well, I know we're doing renovation at Bonner Elementary. Are we turning that into a community school?
No.
No,
that was not the recommendation.
Okay.
I do have a follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
So going back, so I will tell you, and I appreciate Jamie asking the question, because all three folks answered the question, and I didn't walk in here with this perception. But what I heard is we're not doing this for students. And that hurts. It's mathematical. How many bus drivers do we need? Well, we've got 4 positions posted. So you don't need bus drivers. Don't tell me you need bus drivers when we don't have any positions posted.
So can I explain why we post real quick?
Okay.
There's a difference.
If you ask a question, you should get an answer.
So we can go back to an answer. I'm just going to go through really quick. And so that's what I've heard. When I hear Mr. Superintendent said we need to work out the supervision, but we haven't worked it out. There's no, this is how we will do it. That's a problem. Last Tuesday, we heard we don't have enough extended day folks. They're bleeding for people. And that's part of our solution. And they're bleeding for people. And Mr. Persis, to what you said earlier to me, where you said more than around 50%, remember, each of us potentially won our election with 50+1, and 53% on average said that they want to hold off. We chose to make this mathematical. So anything above 50+1 is why we would all be sitting here today. So it was not a split. Mr. Hickman, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I just wanted to comment on your question about only 4 currently posted vacant positions. Transportation is a little bit different than, for example, facility maintenance. I have a vacancy, I post it, we interview, we hire somebody. Transportation, we have a standing vacancy for substitute operators. Once when they come through and finish their training, because 99.9% of the operators, our staff, candidates that want to be operators do not have a CDL license, a Class B license. So we bring them through on a temporary basis. We actually train them. We put them on the road for mentoring. And then when they work for a couple of weeks, then we advertise. So that position then gets advertised. That individual that we hired 8 weeks ago now fills that position for that vacancy. So we don't have it standing all the time. So these 4 are staff members that started in January through that class that are now getting a contract. And now they're getting their benefits and all of those things. So that's the difference between when we start looking at staffing. I have 12 currently vacant positions, not counting those 4 because those 4 we already have filled. 12 vacant positions I don't have staff for that we're trying to get drivers to come in, get trained, and then we can advertise those and fill those positions. So big difference.
Yeah, and to go back, Mr. Superintendent, to what I've been saying week after week, if I'm a school bus driver in Seminole County and I have a CDL, why would I even try to apply in Volusia County? Because there's no position. It went up for a day and then it disappeared. And so I think, that's beyond this conversation. I think it goes back to everything we've been discussing as far as operation goes and our way of posting positions and letting the world know we do have 9 vacancies. Because you may have somebody with a CDL who retired truck driving and says, you know what, I do want to ride a bus. Maybe I do want to, have the summer off.
Right. So just to let you know, we do have what I call jumpers, right? So we may train them and we pay them at $13 an hour, but Seminole County is paying $13.50, so they'll jump over to Seminole County. And then we do negotiations, we jump up, now we're at $13.51 per hour. They'll jump back to us. Although it's not posted, they have a vacancy posted all the time, so they can apply anytime. And we look at that daily and make those contacts daily for anybody that wants to come back. If it's someone that currently has a CDL license in state of Florida, it's very easy to run them through. It doesn't take us 6 to 8 weeks to hire that person. They already have it. All we do is remedial training, put them on the road.
Thank you.
Great. Just a couple of things. One, to the comment, we chose to make this mathematical. We didn't. No, that isn't correct. With all due respect, we chose to seek the public input. That's all we chose. We chose to get some input, hear their comments. It's not as simple as Moore did this and that. You have to drill down into the data to really understand it. The comment, we didn't do this because of what's best for students. That's not accurate. We did this because in our hearts of hearts, we thought it was going to be better for elementary students to have more time with their teachers, and we thought for the high school students, it would be better for them to start later in the day because report after report told us that that was the right thing to do. So those were the 2 drivers that really we thought get something that's better for students, and to the point of Ms. Wright and both Ms. Haynes, to come up with a schedule, if we could, that would not put our elementary students in danger, either waiting in the dark for the bus or being alone at home because parents, it's time to go to work and I got to drop them off. So we were trying to come up with something like that. So our hearts are in the right place here, and it is hard. And we got these schedules and everything. I was sitting here while you all were talking, and I was thinking, okay, Carl, what's the right schedule for all of this? And of course, I don't know what that is, but I was thinking that, and I'll throw this out to Greg because you seem to, and there is that concern, and I agree. The bus deal that we're dealing with tends to stretch everything out farther than we would all like. But if the elementary school schedule were to stay the same, only the difference would be a 7:55 bell. It would now go to 2:35, right?
Right.
Instead of 2:05,
right.
Which is what we have today. It'd have to go 30 minutes longer.
It's 7:55.
Yeah, that's what the bell is.
2:35.
Today, that's what the bell is, right?
Right. We get out at 2:05, so
right.
it'll be 2:35.
And I think that is another good point to make. we discovered through this process, we really don't have a lot of consistency even throughout the district at that, so this would give us a chance to reset that. We have schools that go from 8 to 10. We have schools that were 7:50 to 2 o'clock.
And high school is even more challenging.
More challenging. Okay. And, okay, so I'm just, let's just hear it out. And I want everyone to get involved here. So, come on. This is a workshop. We're supposed to just throw out ideas and let's have it, okay?
So far I have 7:55, 2:35.
Yeah, that's a real tough one. I haven't changed the thing. 7:55 to 2:35. The high school day, now here's another change for the better. We have shortened the high school day by 15 minutes.
Yes.
And I think this is a great thing because we're taking it out of lunch.
Right.
High school, right?
Actually, I'm going to go back to my previous statement. We discovered in this process
that there was many different times.
Right. And even within class periods from high school to high school, they go from, I believe, 45 minutes up to 50 minutes, depending on what high school you go to.
Crazy.
The class periods are different.
Yeah.
But you got to realize.
Go ahead.
Because if you have academies, they are block scheduled. They're not the traditional schedule, and that's probably one.
And there is a difference in the time between classes because of the different sizes of schools, the physical sizes of schools.
Yeah.
There is difference in lunch times. There's difference in beginning and ending times. So, a high school to high school, it could look different. For some, it would mean between classes. For some, it would mean lunch.
Having said all that, we're still shortening their day, total day, and I think it's going to be better for all of us. So, Greg, if we could just hear me out. Leave the elementary school day 7:55 to 3:35. A high school day of 8:35 to 3:35, and a middle school day of 9:15 to 4.
8:35
to 3:35. That's 7 hours.
35. And then middle school was what, sir?
9:15 to 4.
Okay, 9:15.
All I'm saying is that is, for the elementary parents, it's the same. We haven't really done anything except taken maybe a half hour less of daycare that they have to go to after school because they'll still be in school. For middle school, my feeling as a middle school principal, and the feedback I get from parents, you see, if the day ends at 4, they probably are getting home, if they ride a bus, 4:30-ish, right, Greg? 4:30-ish, half hour?
You mean middle school?
Yeah, from your run?
Correct. And so right now, most of our middle schools, we're not getting into the school until 4 o'clock. Okay. So we're already running 15, 20 minutes late because they get out at 3:40 right now. And so they're getting home 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock.
Okay, so...
Yeah, they are. I mean, it varies, but...
Okay, so anywhere from 4:30 to 5 o'clock.
Correct. Yes,
so from the middle school parents' point of view, most middle school parents do not send their children to a daycare after a middle school. So for middle school students, if they're not involved in a club or going to a after school event, they're home alone, or they're not home alone, they're roaming the streets alone. And that's not a good thing for that age group. So the later, if you will, we get middle school students home, it coincides when parents are coming home, and parents like that. They like that. And for high school students, what this does is it achieves the board's goal, I think, of starting the day for them a little bit later, but it doesn't end up being, starts their day later, but doesn't end their day quite as late because we're taking 15 minutes off of their school day anyway. So if their 7-hour, 15-minute day is going down to 7 hours, okay? Now look, I just offer that as somewhere because I don't think there's anything magical, Mr. Colon, Ms. Cuthbert, Ms. Haynes, about these three, but I think we've gotten a lot of input, and I think you can kind of get a sense of how parents are thinking. Unfortunately, Ms. Wright, you didn't hear but we don't have the data that tells us what each parent group voted for. We know what parents voted for,
because they can
but we don't know if it's elementary parents or middle school parents or high school parents. So that's kind of where we are. Go ahead.
So I appreciate that you brought up the new times, because I had this conversation with Mr. Russell several times, and I can tell you, I get lots of, and you all can chime in because I don't live in your district, I get lots of complaints about everything in the world. Yes. I get complaints about everything. Nobody is complaining about the buses. And so part of what's making this really difficult for us is that we're adding additional transition time. We're taking a 30-minute change and turning it into a 50-minute change.
Or 70.
I say we leave the transition times just the way they are. If there's an area where I can, and again, I thought this before and I've shared this with the superintendent. If obviously we do have areas that we need help on because we're running 150 buses less than most districts our size. So we're gonna have, so I'd rather put the onus on fixing those transportation issues on us rather than making an entire district suffer. Because I tell you what, I see buses stopped waiting for the time to come for them to go pick up the next group of kids. They're parked at Publix. They're waiting. So if we left the transition times exactly the way they are today, and we work with exactly what you said here, so we move the elementary up, we give them the 38 minutes in between, we're basically taking off what an hour would be. And we'll figure out the transportation part. We heard we have buses, we just don't have drivers. Yeah. And so if we took away the extra time that's being requested, taking it up to 45 minutes, or which more. Again, nobody complains about buses. My niece is the only one that complained about buses, and I told her we transport 50,000 kids a day. I don't want to hear about the fact that your bus broke down once, okay? But nobody complains about the buses. Maybe it's because I live in Deltona and I'm fortunate. I don't know about your district, Ms. Wright, where your folks are transported. In my district, there's only so many buses. I don't know if there's a lot. I don't know, Greg. But anyways, thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah, good. Yeah, Ms. Cuthbert.
Some buses do arrive at schools late because either a student's late, a student didn't get off, or student didn't get on. Breakdown, or one bus driver doesn't show up, so another bus driver has to cover another route. So those exceptions do happen. I remember sitting in a meeting at Spruce Creek Elementary, and a bus came in 25, 30 minutes late. And it's very distracting and it's embarrassing for the kids to walk in late, and it's difficult for teachers to accept students in late. And that's why I kind of liked option one, because except for the earlier time for elementary, I really liked the high school time, and that's what you were kind of referencing. I thought the middle school was too late, starting too late, ending way too late. They're right in the middle of the height of traffic. And you gotta remember, sixth graders, especially at the beginning of the year, they could be just turning 12. So we have to be, or even turning 11. So we have to be very careful how young middle school children are. They're just right out of elementary. But still, elementary at 7:40, it's still a little too early, and you still have it at 7:55. So 7:40, when they're picked up, they're still in the dark when they're being picked up. And I really think we have to protect our elementary students, especially when they're the ones that have a little more time at home and they need some care.
Ms. Cuthbert, what did you think about what I said? Well,
I'm just concerned about the turnaround time.
Jack, can I have that now calculated? I was doing that when you gave me the numbers.
Great, thank you.
So I have the run time. So just make sure we're good. I'm going to go through the whole thing for you. So can I display it?
And Mr. Cologne, this will help us.
Yep. Let me see.
Ms. Haynes, too, this will help us with
I think we go like
getting
this.
where we want to be, I think.
Is it going to work? It did something, so we'll see.
Where's
I can just go over it real quick. You said you wanted the start time for elementary at 7:55 We would arrive there at 7:25 in the morning, drop those students off to give them time for breakfast. We would leave approximately at 7:35. Their bell rings. We would depart approximately 2:45. Would give us about a 10-minute window because we got to load all the kids to go to the high school next. The high school at 7 hours, you said, started at 8:35. So between 7:35 and 8:35, with a 8:05 arrival, because we have to allow them for lunch, we have to be at the high school at 8:05. That gives me 40 minutes to run that run. Feasible, very good.
You meant breakfast. I think you said lunch.
I'm sorry. Yeah, breakfast. It'd be lunch for me and Mr. Russell.
Lunch for Mr. Russell, probably. But
sorry about that. So and then in the afternoon, you said they would dismiss at 3:35.
Well, that's a 7-hour day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we would need to be there by 3:30. So if we left at 2:45, that would give us 45 minutes to make that run, which is very feasible. We would leave the high school at 3:45, approximately 10 minutes to load and go from there. Heading over to the middle school in the morning time, you said it would start at 9:15. We would need to arrive at 8:45. It gives us the 30 minutes for breakfast. Between the high school drop-off, the middle school would give us 30 minutes. No. So 15 minutes less than what we're recommending, but it's in 2 minutes less than...
Ms. Haynes has a question.
No, because I thought you said you would leave the high school at 8:05.
8:50. No, 8:05 is when we would arrive, and we would leave 10 minutes later to allow all the students to disembark, get out of the traffic, and to move on. So that 10-minute window is not just students getting off. It's us students getting off, buses unloading, then buses exiting, and then getting into traffic out of that school area. We allow 10 minutes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And so did you say that 9:15 was doable?
Well, in the morning time, we would take away 2 minutes of what we currently have today. So for that run, right? Because right now we have 32 minutes roughly. Yeah. We need 45. 40 would be workable, better than what we have today. Yeah. Look in the afternoon. So when you have a 2:35 bell time dismissal, leaving about 10 minutes later, because same thought process, right? We would load the students, then get in traffic to get off property into the roadway. To be at the middle school at 3:55, 5 minutes before bell time, that gives us 10 minutes to run that run. Not going to be able to happen. Can't happen. So when we start looking at the bell times, and I agree with you, I think, starting the start times, everybody likes to focus in on what time they got to get up. We need to really focus on the dismissal time, because I need the 40 minutes there. And if you work the 40 minutes in between there, the start times based on the hour a day is going to tell us what time we need to start. And that's when we went through with this committee, and we went through lots of variables on start times and end times and everything else, and we had everything under the sun you can imagine, and we did all of the scenarios this way. And it doesn't take very long to do this, to look at, to see what is viable, what we can do currently now. So that's what you gave me.
Okay. All right, so... Okay, that was just one. Okay,
sure.
there's 100 more to come.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Go ahead, Ms. Haynes. Yeah. So just so we can, because we are kind of close, we just need to figure out what else we can do.
So going with this, though, this is the question I have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
What we haven't answered is how many buses are out for elementary? Like, how many buses are out for middle school? How many are out for high school? Because we have a total number of routes, but we don't know how many of those are elementary, how many are middle, how many are high. Because when you're talking, because I know right now you don't typically have a bus driver running all 3 tiers.
We have the majority of our buses run 3-tier. We have a couple 2 tiers. I think it's 40. Let me pull up the data for you. I have another PowerPoint that has all that information. If you want to continue on, I'll find it.
I mean, but
as you can see, I got a lot here.
So you see how diligently and how hard our committee members worked.
Yes, they did.
Never doubted it for a moment. Never doubted it for a moment.
When you try it, and it seems very cookie cutter, right? Mm-hmm. But when you get into the deep dive, it's very complex.
Yeah. That's fine.
It's not that one. I'll find it.
Okay.
I have the data.
All right. So it seemed like what I...
I'm going to go back to your scenario.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you pull that back up?
Okay.
Mr. Persis' scenario.
Yes, ma'am.
No,
One
'cause
second.
I'm trying to understand something.
I think it's on here. Let me see. I think it's this one here. There you go.
Okay. So now high school is 7 hours now, am I correct?
Yes.
So is your simulation based on 7 hours?
It is. This was an extra slide I had. I just took that
Okay.
slide on the additional so I could view it here.
Okay.
It's 7 hours.
Okay, so fine. I'm
8:35 to 3:35 is 7 hours.
Okay.
Right. And I'm going to look for the other
And again, what would that
So
look
it
like?
seemed
if-
like what you were, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, what would that look like if the runtime is 35 minutes instead of 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's another minute than we currently have today.
Well,
So-
I hear that, but
Yeah,
we,
I mean,
we're
that's-
challenged no matter what. And again, I didn't
Sure.
realize that till today. And I think, again, we're to change everything for an entire school district by an hour for a few places where we have some opportunities. I mean,
Here's the current runtime we currently have today. If you want to keep that runtime the same, we're going to have the same problems we have today, and I'm fine with that.
and which for me are not.
Perfectly
Other than
for you, because I don't think
I
the board
agree.
members get as many complaints. I think you can ask the principals and you can ask the transportation staff about running late and the complaints we get. We tried to keep them off the superintendent's plate, obviously, and others, but yeah, we tried to keep it off your plate as well.
Okay, so
but let
I
me
just
find the
spent
other data.
6 days out serving breakfast at elementary and middle schools. Like I'd go to serve at an elementary and then bounce over to a middle school.
Right.
And I know that's just 6 days, but that was 6 days that we didn't have any late buses, and I was at different schools every day serving breakfast elementary, then jumping to a middle school. The typical late students that came in, and they were really at elementary and maybe one middle school, they were ones that were coming in because parents dropped them off late.
Well, we have a lot of those that happen that way as well. I do agree.
I mean, there were no late buses for 6 days while I was out there.
So, Greg, if you look back there, when you were going through mine, it seemed like everything was working out great until you got to the last run of the last
in the afternoon
group.
Yes, sir.
The last group. So the morning went fine from morning to high school, drop off, pick up, drop off, pick up, and even pick up at middle school. It was the taking home the middle school.
Yeah, it was the time to run the high school to get to the middle school. I only had 10 minutes.
And I thought you said at one time though at the high school that you had the fewest amount of bus riders.
We have a larger geographical area to run. Our smallest, and I can show you that one real quick on this slide. You can look at the number of.
But I mean, just in terms of buses out there.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to her bus numbers. We actually, and I want to make sure I'm accurate.
Yeah, because that's what I think. What we was thinking was that.
Right.
If the high school came before the middle school, and if you don't need as many buses for the high school, that those buses would be available to get to the middle schools.
We have approximately 200 less high school students riding than we do middle schools.
Okay.
All right, 200.
That's so much, yeah.
Yeah, so 200 is 4 buses.
Yeah.
Less. So I know the question. I know this because I did the numbers for Ms. Haynes, is that if we combine middle and high school together, we need 174 more routes, right?
Okay.
Because you're combining 7,723 riders with 7,584 more, about 15,000 riders. You divide that by 54, and then you would have your number of routes that you would need compared to what we currently have today.
So
let
are
me,
we talking about only 54 students per bus route?
Yeah, because you have 2 to a seat. And so
That's okay at middle and high.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Greg, so the way I put it out there, there was 25 minutes between the ending time of high school, 3:35,
right,
and the ending time of middle school at 4 o'clock.
Right.
So what if that 25 minutes was 35 minutes?
So then you would have 20 minutes to do the run. So, because remember, when we leave a high school, everybody's leaving the high school, right? So I need that 10 minutes, right? So then we get into the traffic, we get into the flow, we get out of the school, then we start rolling, right? And then we drop all of our routes, and our high school routes, traditionally 30 to 45 minutes on any route that we run in a regular route. So if you're zoned for your school, it's 30 to 45 minutes. That's the window, right? Depends on how far we go out and how many stops and how many students we pick up on that bus. Our longer hauls, which would be your islands, Miss Wright, and those are longer than 45. They're traditionally an hour and 15 minutes to run those routes. By the time we pick them up, get out of the school, get to the location, and do our routes, right? So that's what we're looking at on these timing issues that we currently have. I do have that information on number of each one that we have, the buses that are assigned. And I'll find it. Did I answer your question?
I think so. I think what we are.
I have it. I know I've got it.
You know what we're trying to do is come up with a high school start that is later than our current high school start, which is 7:25. To come up with an elementary start that doesn't put kids in the dark. And that also, let's face it, the most students that we have in our system are high school are elementary students.
28,400 students in elementary school.
Well, is that 28,000 transported?
No, sir. Student population. You're looking at populations. 28,400 in elementary. 14,000, just over 14,000 in middle school.
I got it here.
19,000. Got it.
Yeah, I got it. And since they are the youngest and most vulnerable and need the most care from parents and so forth, you know, I think what we're trying to do is not change from where we are drastically. Sure. You know. 10 minutes either way, it perhaps wouldn't be the end of the world, but preferably not to make it earlier for elementary because of the reasons stated here. And so it seems like, you know, for one last run, it's preventing us from accomplishing what we want to do all the way through. I mean, it's kind of hard. It's kind of like, well, why can't we make that work?
So I'm fixing one currently right now that to kind of look at. If you want to add more buses to the middle school, that would be one of the things we need to look at. And I don't have that breakdown. I know Betsy Burse is listening, so she send me an email real quick. She has those numbers. I couldn't find it because I'm bouncing back and forth.
To Mrs. Haynes' point and Mr. Colon too, like Mr. Colon was saying, you know, he doesn't really receive a whole lot of bus issues.
Sure.
And from Ms. Haynes' point, I think was, you know, the most important thing is what's best for students. And so if we keep our focus on what's best for students, then it would be a decision, as you said, to come back to the board to say, look, if you want this schedule that is best for students, then it's going to cost you out of your general fund X amount of dollars to buy the extra buses and the extra bus. Ms. Cuthbert, am I saying this right?
Okay. So I think when I asked before, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
We have buses that are sitting. It's bus drivers.
We have spare buses currently right now that are used on a daily basis. So we would pull spare buses from transportation every 30 days. Every school bus has to be inspected, right? So we have spare buses. A bus breaks down, we've got another bus we can put into service to do that operation. We pull buses off the road for PM maintenance. And for the safety inspections, so we have those buses set aside. Could we add those buses to a regular route? Yes, that brings our 12% spare ratio down to whatever that spare ratio is. Right. I did look at some data this year because we are replacing some buses. Our breakdown rate is about 6%, so that's not bad at all. Yeah. And that includes accidents, those type of things that we have to change out the operators on. Yeah. So we do have the buses.
What's our total number of?
We have 301 school buses, 208 routes. Of the 301, we've got, boy, you guys are taxing my mind today for those exact numbers. But we have high schools. All 10 high schools have 2 activity buses. Some have CTE bus. So we have to take that number off, so that would be 20, let's just say 25, right? So out of 310, it'd be 276 buses. And then out of 208, that's the spare ratio, and now we divide them out by five terminals, and that's what our numbers would be. I have that data too. It was a great question.
So in your total, you're including the activity buses that are assigned to the high schools?
Yeah, total buses that we report to the state is 301. 301 total buses we have today. We have 2 of the 301 are totaled. So we actually have 299 buses that can actually roll on the road. 2 have been totaled that we still have. We haven't sold for scrap yet. So, and I'm still working your other issue here.
Yeah, thank you. And Ms. Wright has a question.
So, well, this is really for you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm hearing you right, based on what you're proposing, what we're asking more so now from transportation is pretty much let's help solve this problem. And then my question would be to Greg or transportation, Mr. Moyer, how do we have part-time drivers where we could bring people in just for the evening route? Because it appears that we wouldn't need extra routes in the morning, and it appears that the only place we would need extra routes would be in the afternoon for middle school.
Mm-hmm. So
it's a 2-tier.
Yeah.
Or could we look at adjusting our routes for those who do elementary to do elementary and middle, and maybe have a small core to do high school? Mm-hmm. I'm just asking, is that common?
Yeah. So all of our subs, we would consider them subs, actually drive every day. They help us for our absenteeism. By contract, we're limited on the amount of part-timers, which are calling like I'll drive in the morning but not in the afternoon. Okay. We're limited by contract what we can contractually do because they want to have their membership have a day, 5-hour minimum day there. Can we set aside, that would be a single tier run, right? So a single tier run is they only come in just for the high school, they would have a 2-hour day, roughly, right? 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, probably be 2.5-hour day. Because they would have to run it in the morning and they'd have to run it in the afternoon.
But that's my question. Why would they have to run in the morning? Because the morning we don't have the problem. Why can't they just run in the afternoon?
And that's if we could find the staff that are certified and train them just to run a 1-hour run in the afternoon. So we would have one employee coming in for 1 hour to drive a bus to run the high school, or 1 hour and a half.
And Ms. Cuthbert.
Yeah.
How many would we need from the high school, after school, per high school? You need 2?
You mean, I'm sorry.
How many additional bus drivers would we need per high school?
So I'm trying to find that information and working on your other things as well.
No pressure, Greg, but
No computer up there. Because the reason
I want to make sure I'm very accurate. I don't want to give you a number, and I think it's 198. I think we have 198 buses that run high school alone. And there's 174, I think it's middle school that run, and 208 run our. It's 174 run our elementary school, and then 194. 208 run our high schools and 194. But let me get the numbers.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Because at every high school that I've ever been at, there have always been staff members, teachers, who have bus licenses. Whether they drive the cheerleaders to a game or a football team to a game, there's always somebody that has a license. So would a teacher want to have a license to drive the kids out? Also, I mean, I see the buses just waiting, because at a high school you have parents are driving, grandparents driving, kids are driving, and the buses have a very hard time getting out of the parking lot. Once they get out, they just get rolling out. They can just zoom, zoom, zoom. It only takes a little bit of time to get all the buses out. Could we have an administrator or a police officer stop the traffic and let those buses out?
It'd be very difficult to make to have.
Well, I'm just looking at.
No, I agree, and we can't have administrators because they're not certified in traffic control. Because that was been brought up before. The last 15 years I've been here, because we've always, I don't want to say complained, had concerns of trying to get out of certain schools. It's more difficult. Deltona High is a prime example. Pine Ridge, we have sometimes we have some issues there because we don't have a light there to be able to get out of there. So. But yes, I mean, we request, sure. Spruce Creek High School, you hear Port Orange when we were there. They're there every day, but they manage the parent loop, not the bus loop, because we're wanting parents in and out, and that's what their concerns are, is over in that area.
They wouldn't be there that long.
Right. No, I know. And when we look at dismissal times anywhere, most of the campuses are cleared in 20 minutes.
That's right.
You know, so it's not that long. I'm still looking.
I know you are. And Ms. Haynes has a thought here, a question. Yes.
Okay, so as Mrs. Wright said, where our issue is with what you put forth is those middle school, and so it's a matter of drivers. So I'm thinking outside the box here. We've got warehouse guys driving all the warehouse trucks and the cafeteria trucks, the food trucks. They come in really early in the morning and they get off a whole lot earlier than what school is dismissed. All of them have CDL licenses. Is that a group that we could possibly tap into or ask, would they like to drive a route home, therefore making extra money? And then another thought is, at the elementary school at times, depending on where I have been in my career and having issues with buses and parent pickups, we have sometimes staggered our dismissal, like got the bus kids out the door first and on the buses, then got the students out maybe that are bikers and walkers, and then 3 minutes later release the parent pickup group, because then they've not been able to get on the road, and the buses and the walkers and all that have, and then sent the daycare group over to the daycare. So that could be a thing that could solve high school.
Very common. Let him answer, Mr. Cologne, then I promise you'll get right to you.
So warehouse drivers, we have, I think there are 5 warehouse drivers, so we have 5 guys that would be available if they were willing, because you can't make them do that. They come in very early. They start their routes at 6 a.m. They come in early, run their routes, they go home 3 o'clock, I think is what time they are dismissed for the day. Here's the information that you asked for.
Which one was that?
This is the information on number of buses per school, right? So elementary, middle, and high. Okay. Here it is. It's on the screen for you. So 174 high school buses are run. 191 do elementary, and 176 do middle school. And then we have 12 routes that do a +1 elementary school, because right now you can't do, you have to do a 2-tier.
Got it.
It's the different.
Got it.
Then we have 12 routes do charter schools, and 5 routes do alternative ed schools. Now, alternative ed is kind of unique, right? So they're the Riverview High Banks. They pick up all east side, all west side, and go into there. Right? So we've got 12 of those buses. When you look at it from a 3-tier operation, 150 do 3-tier, and then 58 do a 2-tier operation. 6 do after-school tutorials, and 5 do ATC runs.
Okay.
So that's what we currently have.
Okay, Greg. Time out. Okay. Mr. Cologne, go ahead.
So, to my colleagues on the board, we're venturing into the rainbows and unicorns now. Because the reality is we don't have the bodies to do this. We know that we don't. We don't have these buses don't just appear. There are decisions that need to be made. We have a majority of folks that are saying, for other reasons, hold off. I don't know what else to say. Because this is kind of cool, and I wish I had the Excel spreadsheet for this, because I could be plugging in times and it could calculate it itself. But there's a lot of things going into consideration here. From, we're talking about getting truck drivers to drive students. They don't want to mess with kids.
Well, we're just thinking outside.
No, and I agree, but again, we're venturing into, so we add more buses. Well, that's decision.
I'll say this.
Okay, Ms. Wright, go ahead.
What Carl said. I don't think any of us really wouldn't have an issue saying delay, and I'm just speaking generally. I think even at the end of the day, we got to make a decision, because it's coming.
I agree.
But I will tell you this. If our elementary school grades don't look halfway decent, they're going to be screaming that they need the time. And so it will become a point that we got to make a decision. Right. And so I'm not saying it has to roll out in the fall. I'm just saying we just got to make a decision. And if we need to refer it back to transportation, say, hey, look at these times. What can you come up with? Because we all are sitting here, we're thinking they may have a legitimate solution. Let's ask the people who do the job.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that implementing
Mr.
math
Cologne, hang on one
reading,
second. Mr. Cologne, hang on one second. The obvious answer right here is just start the middle school day at 9:30, and you get out at 4:15, and everything works.
Or you move
so you just start you leave elementary exactly where it is. The high school day can be at 8:35 or maybe 8:30, and the middle school day starts at 9:30, and then you have plenty of time to do that, to do everything. But I would think that, you know, if that's something that we want to do, because it does achieve the goal of starting high school later, and we can't lose sight of that. That we could say that at this time, we would go along with that schedule, but our intent is for that middle school day to really not start at 9:30, but to start closer to 9:15, and give transportation time between now and the fall to say, you know, what would need to happen, you know, how much would it cost us, you know, give them that goal, and then if they say, come back to us and say, well, school board, you know, it would cost you $1 million if that's what you want to do to make that particular schedule work, then it'd be up to the board to decide that. And if the board says, well, for 15 minutes, I'm not sure it's worth $1 million. You know, I mean, that's what it would get down to. But I think I think we're on the right path, and I wouldn't just want to throw in the towel at this point, because this committee's worked hard. We've had 25,000 people respond to a survey. We've worked hard, and we are very close to really coming up with it. Is it perfect? No, but is the schedule we have now perfect? No. Or is option 1 perfect, or option 2, or option 3 perfect? No. So I think what we're trying to do is, you know, compromise, get the best of each option, put it together. And our only holdup is just what Mr. Colon and Ms. Haynes said. It's transportation, and transportation should not continue to drive the schedule. It's been doing it forever. What's right for students should be what drives the schedule. And so we have to keep that in the forefront of our thinking and not give up, and just keep saying what's best for our children, and challenge transportation a little bit more to say, this is what the board wants, this is what we think is what's right for kids. Now how can you make that work for us? And that's where, and Greg, this is not a criticism, because you guys run a great transportation department, and I know you've won awards for efficiencies and all that kind of stuff. So don't take this as a criticism. Just take this as another challenge.
So I have the next one for you. I have finished it here real quick. So 7:40 elementary time, 2:20 dismissal time. 8:20 for high school, 3:15 dismissal time. Middle school, 8:35 getting out. I'm sorry, 9:35 getting out at 4:20. You could actually back that up 5 minutes, get out at 4:15 and start at 9:30.
But what time did the elementary start?
7:40. 10 minutes prior to what they're currently starting now.
15 minutes earlier.
Are you talking about option 1?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I took 5 minutes off. No, it's 3:15.
See, Greg, it's that 15 minutes. See, you're starting elementary 15 minutes earlier.
Sure.
And that gets middle school out 15 minutes earlier, almost on the back end.
Sure.
But what we're kind of saying here is we really wouldn't want to start elementary any earlier than what it is now.
So you're my direction currently right now, and I can work on it between now and whenever, but you want us to go the same, what order do you want? That's what I need to know.
7:55.
No, what order do you want? You want elementary first?
Yeah, elementary first.
And then who's second?
High school.
Okay, and then who you want there? Obviously middle school, correct? Yeah. And what's the start time you want for elementary school?
Elementary, I would tell you, and I'm for the board,
sure,
no earlier than it is now.
So 7:55 is what you want the start time. You
Right.
want me to work on that?
No
I mean,
earlier.
I can go 5 minutes, you know, like, or something, you know.
Now, it's 7:55 now.
Correct.
It's 7:55 now. I mean, I don't think 7:45 or 7:50 is going to be a big difference over 7:55. I don't think anything before 7:40.
I see some gnashing of teeth, so I don't know. So maybe
Nothing
5
before
minutes.
7:45.
So maybe maybe 5 minutes.
So everybody knows, you know, we currently now pick up regular ed students for elementary school about approximately at, ESC at 6:30 and at 6:30 for regular ed as well. So backing it up, it'd be 6:20 in the morning. Now we're going back to it's too dark for kids to be at bus stops.
It is, and that's our point.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Okay.
I mean, but I will do a scenario for you.
If at all possible, keep
do a
it
scenario
at the way it is now for elementary or 5 minutes later,
Sure.
you know, high school next, and as if you can crunch that time, you know, with high school
8:30 to
and then
3:30?
high school. Yeah.
If we moved you had suggested 8:35.
Yeah, if we could do
So
high
if we can
school,
do
Greg, if
8:30
you
to
could do high school
3:30?
starting, Ms. Cuthbert, hear me out, 8:30 to 3:30.
Sure. Because that looks like option one. See, I
Yeah, it's kind of a-
prepared for option one, except for the extreme late time of the middle school, and then I also thought the elementary was a little too early because the arrival time is at 7:10.
Yeah,
and that's they're in the dark too long.
And Ms. Cuthbert, you're exactly right. And to make that work, it just takes transportation to make that those run times in between shorter. If we can do that, then we can achieve our goal.
Right. So I will draft something here pretty quick.
Okay. Then what I'm going to do, board, if you're okay with this, we've given our transportation guru a challenge or two. But let me just say this before we end the workshop. I want to again commend the committee. Now, you guys have done this for 5 times, and this is our first crack at it, okay? So we have only been doing it for, what, about 2 hours here? Great, but we also benefited from all the hard work that you all have done previously. So, you know, you helped us get to where we are now, and I want to thank each of you out in the audience. I don't know you by name, but thank you for that input, and thank the panel here, Ms. Cuthbert.
And also all those who participated in the survey.
Yeah, and
I
the
mean,
survey.
that was fabulous, just to have so many people respond who care about, and it's just, I keep thinking of all the comments and trying to put it all together. And it is, for every happy person, there might be 3 unhappy people. But it is very difficult. My heart, I want 2 definite things. I want more planning time for elementary teachers. And I desperately want a later date for high school kids so they can
a later
operate
start
and be
time.
more successful. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to adjourn the workshop, and we'll start as a school board at 5:30. 5:30, school board meeting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doing good. How are you?